One of them called themselves Nightingale, the other one called himself Swallow. You know, they tease, presumably, the Russians with this depth of knowledge they're supposed to have about this spy ring, so the Russians feel insecure about their other operations.
It's amazing. I had an opportunity to scan the 55 pages of charge sheets this morning, and they have recorded conversations, they have pictures of them in foreign countries, passing money, passing information. The amount of information that the FBI has on this ring is truly astounding, and they haven't revealed all of it, just enough to charge them.
You know, again, we're reminded that spying, of course, goes on, and quickly the papers and the commentators will decide that it's an inevitability and so on. Should we be surprised that it seems so quaint and antiquated, this idea of a suburban couple being hoiked out of Moscow University in their 20s and sent off to America to build a new life and meanwhile stay in touch with your handlers back in Moscow? And presumably the same size fits all the other major countries, our own included.
Well, there are two types of, if you will, spies in a foreign country. There are legals, and usually legals are associated with the embassy. So they have diplomatic cover, they are openly known as citizens of that foreign country. They may be collecting information, they may be spying, but they're here legally. Then there are illegals, people that have entered the country without acknowledging their country of origin and are operating under a false identity. They're known as illegals. Illegals take a long time to develop. You need a long time to build a cover story, to build your legend, to get integrated. When you're on a long-term assignment like some of these people were, which is to facilitate liaisons with U.S. national security officials, it takes a while to develop that.
Indeed it does. Bob S., thanks very much indeed for coming in this morning. Charlotte, what do you think? Do you think we should start looking at our neighbours differently now? And
maybe we should do. You never know, do you?
Be afraid, be very afraid. Charlotte, what's happening in the rest of the day's news?
Well, it's news about the England team returning home. They've arrived back at Heathrow in the last hour after being knocked out of the World Cup by Germany. The players had cars laid on for them and their families. Fabio Capello's future's
Florida now and so on. So do we care if the films are any good or not? Because they'll just go and soak it up.
Well, I suppose the slight problem now is that the books have all finished, so people do know what's going to happen. But then at the same time, you know, we knew what was going to happen in Lord of the Rings if you'd read that. So it is about how it's explained on the big screen. And I think, again, increasingly as they're getting darker, they're getting more flamboyant to look at. Me as, you know, a film fan, as a film critic, I think they've been getting better because there's been better directors making them.
Sure, and Philosopher's Stone, what, 2001? Nearly a decade has passed. You know, things have been invented, mobile phones or whatever. You know,
when you watch that and it's on the telly, they look, I mean, they look like, you know, infants. They look like toddlers on there. It's really weird to watch. They've grown up on the set of these movies. So I think they finished filming these two only about a month ago. And, you know, obviously it was a very big emotional day. I've heard Emma Watson talking about how she was in tears on the last day of shooting because they have literally, it's like to be in school for them.
Yeah. Charlotte, you going to the premiere? Probably, aren't you?
Well, I'd quite like to, I think. But I want to know, what about this thing about splitting them into two films? Because this really annoys me, actually. They did it with The Matrix, and then, you know, you get to the end and you think, well, hold on, you haven't finished the film properly. I feel like I've seen half a film. You've got to wait months for the next bit to come out, and then you've forgotten what happened. So
they're doing it with the new Twilight film as well.
Is it because they've got so much stuff?
Well, I think in the case of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, it is, because that is a massive book. It's like the size of a house. So I can kind of understand their argument. Obviously, they want to string it out for as much as possible.
It did work with Lord of the Rings, didn't it, to go one a year?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the argument is that, you know, for the fans to be satisfied with everything from the book being put into the films, it would have to be a 5-hour film, which is why they've split it into two.
What about James, the three players, you know, Radcliffe, Grint, Watson, their careers? I mean, it's been an extraordinary, unprecedented launching pad for a career, hasn't it?
And in a way, they don't need to work financially anymore because they have made a lot of money out of it.
I'm sure.
They'll want to because they want to prove themselves. And Daniel Radcliffe's doing very well on the stage. He's done some stage work in America as well. Rupert Grint's sort of popping up in quite small, low-budget British films, but I think that's probably a nice antidote to the hype of Potter. Emma Watson, of course, is at college. She's, you know, was at Glastonbury at the weekend. She's just chilling out and enjoying herself.
Yeah, indeed. And I know that Charlotte's going to have the DVD from the first half of the film in her pocket when she goes to see the second half next July.
I'll have to have that to remind me, won't I?
James, good stuff.
Cheers.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning. OK, let's get some sport news before we finish. Jackie's there for us in Wimbledon.
Andrew, thank you very much. That's all for now.
Jackie, thanks very much indeed. Well, what a morning. The footballers have come home. There's accusations of spying in the air. Let's find out what our viewers think of it all. Charlotte.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to say it's football, football, football on the emails today. You might be sick of it, but it's all that people are talking about, actually. Nigel Kershaw saying our football players are all overrated and overpaid. The main responsibility, however, must be with FA for allowing such high wages and not investing in our youth. Ian in West Yorkshire say we're terrible at the World Cup, but it's wrong to lay the blame solely at Capello's feet. Richard Hayes in Southampton says, as to Fabio's fate, why don't they tell him 2 hours before? Which is, of course, what Fabio Capello did to the England players. So a little suggestion there.
Indeed, Charlotte, thanks very much indeed. Well, I think we're getting the picture now, Lucy, aren't we? Little showers are moving over. They've passed Jackie. She's back in the clear again. What are we facing? More heat for the rest of the week?
Yes, really, we are. I mean, we're not going to see unbroken blue sky and sunshine like we have. Temperatures not quite as high as they have been, but at least it's going to feel more comfortable for many of us. The showers moving through today will make temperatures...